Well, the Chinese government has said that it is open to working with external groups to determine the cause of the coronavirus outbreak, but there have been varying reports over whether the virus was man-made or started in an animal market. Well, joining me is our correspondent, Tom Cheshire, who was at that press conference by the Chinese government. Tom, I read they said that they would be open to investigation, but there is a snag.
Yeah, there's always a snag, Adam. And just to put this in context, last week, Sky News spoke exclusively to the WHO's representative in China, Dr. Gaudin Galea, and he said that the WHO had been asking to join China's investigations into the origins of COVID-19. They'd asked repeatedly, but they had been refused. So today was the first time the Chinese government was back to work. We've had a holiday here for the last few days. So at that press conference, I asked Hua Chunying, the spokesperson, why the WHO hadn't been invited. She first of all started off by saying our report was inaccurate, which is unfounded. You can watch the report. We've got the transcripts. And then when I pressed her, she said this. So she said, we are open to close cooperation with the WHO to find out the root cause so that in the future, when we are dealing with future pandemics, we can better deal with them. And we support at an appropriate time to look back and summarize the pandemic. So I think there's two things there. They're open to working with the WHO, but not to the extent of actually working with them. The WHO have asked for access and it still hasn't been granted. And second, all through this, I mean, when we've heard a lot of politicians in the US, for example, saying they think it started in labs or other things like that, China's always rejected this as a political grievance from the US, and it does have some suspicion there from what we've seen. But at the same time, I mean, it's also said this has to be a matter for scientists. It has to be a matter for transparent accountability, and it won't let the scientists in until that appropriate time, which certainly isn't now. Now, AFP, the news agency, is also reporting that China's ambassador to the UN has just said that they will have international experts in only when the pandemic is over. So that's going to be a long time away. I think this idea that China's trying to do is saying that it is open to experts coming, at the same time not letting them come in, is going to infuriate a lot of people around the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom Cheshire there in Beijing.
Hi, welcome to The Pursuit of Truth. You were just hearing Sky News there. I wanted to play that because it's another their propaganda pieces against China. That they do this because they've started now also talking about cyber hacking, and they talked about the 4 countries. And it's interesting that the people that made the claim that there was some cyber hacking going on didn't actually specify which countries. It was the media that decided to name China, Iran, and Russia. Who was the other one? I can't remember what the 4th one was. As trying to hack into the UK and the US to get their vaccines or medical data or whatever. I mean, and people, do they not think that the United States and the United Kingdom don't do the same things? Don't we have a history of hacking? And how do they know? And this is why the government or whoever was told the story to the media in the first place didn't specify. How do they know that it's the government that's the country and not an individual? I mean, it could be an individual, a Chinese person, or a Russian person infiltrating data or into UK or US top secret things or whatever. Same as we got the Star Wars story. There was an American, or was it British student hacked into NASA or into the nuclear program in the United States. Now, if that was the way that they're reporting now, they would have said that was the UK doing it. But it wasn't the UK, it was a UK citizen. It wasn't the state. Wasn't the government sanctioned doing it. So I expect they've got no evidence, no IP address that links them to the government. I mean, would the government, even if they were going to do it, be so stupid to link themselves to it? I mean, we've all seen James Bond, no? We all know the biggest spy in the world is James Bond. And who's the other biggest one? Jason Bourne. I know they're fictional, but they're both UK and US. We've been spying for years, no? Infiltrating governments and puppet dictators, and the Egypt story, putting their people in. History is littered with it. With the way that white people, Western people, talk on the media is as if we don't do any of those things, that we've never done any of those things, that we wear white hats and we would never do such a dastardly thing. We would never infiltrate and get secrets from other countries. You don't think the UK and US are not spying on each other? I mean, it's just laughable, this. And the way that they will laugh and say there's a snag and all that stuff. Why do you think that China might not want the WHO investigating this? Well, who funds the WHO? You can Google it. It's the United States of America, although they've withheld their money now. The United Nations, the Gates Foundation, Bill Gates again, his name popping up again. Now, I read before that the United States actually gave money to this Wuhan laboratory to do with coronavirus. Now, that's another problem I'm finding as well. And this is where it comes with fact-finding and research, that YouTubers don't have the, I don't have the ability to do it. How would I, how did the media do it? Well, maybe they don't do it any more differently than I would. So how would you validate it? You know, that what the piece of information that you've got is actually accurate. Because I know there was a thing I saw yesterday where that I'd read on Facebook, Matt Hancock, there was a claim that he had money in a pharmaceutical company, and there was a Reuters article I then found out, because I wanted to research a bit more to see if it was true, that said that this was a false news story on Facebook. Now the thing is, of course, you could argue then that, well, just because Reuters say that doesn't mean it is. How do you find out these things? You know, I know Company House, they do have to put out names of who are involved in certain organisations, but of course that could easily be hidden, and this, that and the other, and then you get into espionage and conspiracy and all that kind of stuff. Not espionage, conspiracy, you know, but so that's the big problem. How do we know when we read something that it's valid? And that's the same for journalists as well. But journalists, they probably go to the minister and ask them, is this true? And it depends on the minister whether he's going to say, yeah, it's true or not. That whole part of the problem of all of this, of truth and lies, is humans. Because we have to rely on humans telling the truth, and we know that the failing of human beings is their ability to lie, especially when it's to hide things or compromise them or whatever they see, their system, their country. So I'm finding that very difficult now, because when you read things on Facebook or I see something on television, I can't just say, just because it's on Facebook and it's what, they're saying that Bill Gates is involved in this, he must be. I mean, it's confirmation bias. You can't, switch TV on and say, they're saying that, but it's not true. But then you read something that, that you think sounds more true, or you like that conspiratorial thing, or you want to find something big. So that's the big problem. How do we know what the truth is? And I'm finding that more and more difficult with these subjects. Because you can't just believe, just because it's on media, or it's on Facebook, or it's on YouTube. They're all human beings telling these narratives. And like that story started off with China, how they accuse them of, wanting to take their time. The British government keeps saying that the same thing when it comes to the people saying that you're the highest in Europe now. And they're saying, well, wait till it all finishes and then we can calculate all these things. And then on Sky News, they showed a different way you could do it by capita. And then you could get, US would be lowest, Belgium would be highest. Whereas if you do it by deaths, it's the other way around. So that just proves how there's lies, damn lies and statistics, how you can create a picture, whatever picture you want. You can swap things around just by how you work out the numbers. So it is so difficult to find the truth. Because you can't get inside someone's mind. On Facebook I can see that Bill Gates is involved in this, but is he involved in these things? What is he really involved in? Or is it someone that's peddling lies? Because people like to lie, even when it comes to these types of things. Journalists like to lie as well, or distort things. Politicians. It's the most difficult thing at the moment to actually know what the truth is and that's the problem when you open this can of worms of questioning the government or the state or the media, and then looking at alternatives, is then you start to realise, well, wait a minute, if this source is lying in the first place, how do we know that this one isn't lying as well? Because at the end of the day, like I say, they're all governed by human being minds. And until we can stop lying, well, it could always be true or false. So you live your life in a sort of a path of not knowing which way you're going at any time, like blind. How can we eradicate lying from our children so that we don't have to live like that anymore? Or is this always a failing that we're always going to have? Anyway, that was my thought for the day. Take care, take it easy, God bless, and peace.